Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. The 2020-2021 season culminated at the Estadio do Dragão as Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea took on Pep City. City came in confident, having been the outstanding side in Europe this season, but Tuchel's men have beaten them twice recently, so they were just as confident. And in the end, the match finished 1-0 to Chelsea, thanks to Havertz, meaning the Champions League trophy is heading back to London. The XG showed that this was a well-deserved victory for Tuchel's men, 1.59 to 0.52. But what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. Here's how Tuchel and Pep lined up. And to get formations like this, you can check out our video sponsor, the OneFootball app. OneFootball will give you formations, news, transfer news, and so much more for your favorite teams and players throughout the season as well as through the Euros. And the best part is you can get it absolutely free through the link in the description below. Let's start with Chelsea and what they did with their 40% possession. Whenever possible, Chelsea would look to build up short from Mendy, with Rudiger and initially Silva splitting wide, whilst Azpilicueta moved wider right, with James holding a higher position. In City's default initial 4-3-3, De Bruyne would have no chance of winning the ball against these men, as he was badly outnumbered. So instead, Mahrez began to tuck onto Rudiger from the right-hand side, and initially, this forced Chelsea to build down their right. So, Sterling would start deeper to allow Azpilicueta to initially receive the ball, and once he did, he would press, using his cover shadow to prevent the ball into James. And initially, this often forced Chelsea long. It should also be noted though, that when Chelsea did go long, they looked to target Havertz, who had pulled onto Zinchenko as he had the height advantage, but Zinchenko held his own in the air. But City's decision to have Mahrez tucking in early to press proved to be fatal. Chelsea soon stopped forcing their play down the right-hand side, and went left instead, either to Rudiger first or more commonly with the chip ball into Chilwell. And when Walker looked to remain deep, Mount would also remain deeper, forcing him into a decision of which man to pick up. And we did often see Walker fully commit to pressuring Chilwell, which would mean that Mount was free to receive and turn, and suddenly Chelsea had 1v1s in crucial areas. This directly leads to the winning goal. Mahrez is central pressing, so Chilwell can receive, and Walker then moves to press him. Mount is free, so Stones chooses to come out of defense to press, meaning Diaz and Zinchenko are 1 versus 1, and there's acres of space behind the high line. Diaz tracks Werner's run, and it becomes a battle of speed between Zinchenko and Havertz. But both Walker and Stones had moved backwards to try and cover Werner's run, meaning that 3 men were picking up 1 run. So Mount has plenty of space to pick out the pass that leads to the goal. As discussed, Chelsea weren't afraid to take advantage of the high line. With Werner unable to escape Walker's shackles down the left-hand side, he moved to the right, where he had more pace than Diaz and Zinchenko, and Chelsea consistently looked longer to try and get him in for the 1 versus 1. But high up in controlled possession, Chelsea's frontline caused City all kinds of problems. Both wingbacks provided the width, meaning that when Mahrez was high, they had a 5 versus 4 against the City backline. On the right, Havertz's positioning would often draw a City centre-back, and give Werner space to attack, drawing another centre-back wide. However, we also often saw Mount more central, drawing in Walker, which would free Chilwell to receive a switch to potentially look for the cross or shot. Under sustained pressure, however, Mahrez would essentially become a right wing-back to try and even things up 5v5. But how did City look to use the ball? Generally, they were able to play out short, as Chelsea were content to allow them through the first phase in order to remain compact deeper on the pitch. And City generally used a back three, with Walker narrow on the build-up, and they looked to overload the midfield, with Zinchenko tucking in to create a diamond so it often looked like a 3-4-3. And this was an interesting duel between the two managers, as Tuchel's wide centre-backs, as they have all season, would look to push up into midfield to even things up, which may have been what Pep was anticipating. Down the right in particular, Mahrez and De Bruyne were in close proximity, ready to make the run into the space created, if Rudiger did press the midfielder. But Tuchel's faith in his defense paid off, with City unable to find that line-breaking pass. But Chelsea also adapted to this potential overload by dropping their front three deeper, and Werner in particular moved on to Gundogan, which would free up Jorginho and Kanté to pick up City's floaters between the lines, such as De Bruyne when he dropped deep. City's backline would look to draw them out at times by holding onto the ball, but when the Chelsea frontman was looking to press, they used their cover shadows effectively to still cover the route into the midfield. Zinchenko's positioning on the left would at times draw out Azpilicueta, allowing Sterling to then receive and have a 1-versus-1. However, James never gave him the time to turn, making this ineffective for City. But importantly, Chelsea were content to sit quite deep, meaning that City never got any space between the lines. The space was usually available for the City fullbacks wide of the narrow block. But Chelsea didn't mind this situation as there is limited goal threat. City did have some minor success when they overloaded the left-hand side, as Sterling can then be played in behind with his pace being able to beat James, which we saw in one instance. But for the most part, Chelsea were comfortable defensively. So could Pep have done anything differently? Personally, I don't think the personnel was necessarily the problem, but the system that Chelsea uses is a bad matchup for City's back four. If you want to see how I think Pep could have done better, in our preview to this match I speculated of how he could have used the back five, which I think could have been more effective, although of course Pep knows better than me. So I'll link that video down below, and I'll also leave a timestamp in the comments for that video to indicate the part where I talk about the back five. But overall, from start to finish, Chelsea dominated, not needing the ball to execute their plan. It also means that Tuchel has won 3 on the bounce against Pep after going winless for so long. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down in the comments below. And thank you for all the support throughout the 2020-2021 season. A quick shout out to my Patreons for helping to make this video possible. If you want to support, head on over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple and you'll get rewards like early access to videos and exclusive content. And a special thanks to my Patreons including Astra Fauzi, Andre Tanase, and Philip Jorgastin for helping to make this video possible. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.